like if it's not only losing your sight, but any other kind of sensitive challenge, it's still to engage that person, still to...
Communication doesn't mean sitting together. It means drop an email, say hello, comment on a Facebook tweet, or anything. Just reach out and just to know that person still has a connection to you. That makes a big difference to showing your character and putting you in the line of support for that newly disabled person.
Let's talk communication today with Christopher Fenter, the blind scooter guy. Today in Let's Talk Communication, with me, Telana Simpson, I am talking to Christopher Fenter. He's a scooter enthusiast and adventure writer. One of his adventures had quite a tragic ending in that he lost his sight. And I speak with him about what he's learned about communication and relationships from having lost one of his senses.
Welcome, Christopher. I know that in my other show, the Let's Talk Possibility show, we've got a lot about your story and there's some really interesting learnings, in particular around communicating and relating, that I want to just highlight from your story. But just to put a bit of in context for people that may not have heard that show yet, tell us a bit about your story of how you got to go on an adventure and ended up losing your sight.
Cool, thanks, Telana. So in 2013 I travelled with a group of friends all the way from Cape Town to Dublin, and we did the trip on scooters, little 150cc LML Vespa scooters. And during the trip I got really ill in Africa, and after a lot of misdiagnosis and some troubled time in and out of hospitals, after the trip unfortunately I lost the photoreceptors on my retinas and lost my sight, and ended up now stepping into this new dark world as a blind person.
And how long ago was that? How many years have you...
Well, the trip was in 2013. 2014, halfway through, it was in June that I lost my sight, and medically I was quite ill. So right at the end of 2014, the beginning of this year, 2015, I was in recovery mode, let's say. And from the beginning of this year, I've been learning about how to live as a blind person.
And it's amazing, we spoke in the other show about all the technology that's really allowing you to still engage with the world.
I always wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to write about travel and adventure, and of course the story, or the trip was a way of creating a story. And I am now a writer that writes about travel and adventure. I just didn't realize I'd become a blind writer that writes about travel and adventure. So I've of course had to learn about technology and what's out there, and voiceover systems, screen readers, and I have a whole host of toys that I play with. As I mentioned in the previous show, it's very unfortunate that there's not much support in this line in Southern Africa. I've had to figure these things out as I went along, but I'm at the point now where I can type using a voiceover. So, for example, as I type the letters, it tells me what the letters are, tells me what the words are and what the sentences are, so I can use the computers for pretty much anything: email, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media apps. I can stream radio stations and all that type of thing.
And it's been great because we've spoken a lot through that medium, and so, kept in touch over all these years, and specifically more recently.
It's always funny. It's always funny for me. I've asked for I get a building contractor, for example, who has spoken to me on the phone, and perhaps we've bounced a couple of emails back and forth, and he arrives here, and then I let him in the gate, and he says, "Oh, you didn't sound blind." I don't know what a blind person is supposed to sound like, and I certainly know that a blind person is not handicapped in any way other than visually. Now I know that. It took me a while to figure that out. It was life is a series of crests and troughs, and that was certainly a tough trough to come out of.
But you have, and coming through that trough, I know you've highlighted some really interesting learnings on your blog and that. So one of them was really around your communicating and other people. Word it this way: what you've learned about communication, having
Yeah.
lost your sight. So I don't know if you want to just share with us
Well,
some of
it
those
comes
learnings.
down to, from a technology point of view, accessibility, making things accessible to a blind person, making them clear, concise. When there's audio descriptions, making them legible and manageable for a blind person. And from a personal point of view, it's a case of really stopping to listen so that you hear what people say, making sure you understand things properly, and making sure that people know. It's all fair and well. My mother makes a mistake often of saying to me, "It's just this way. Just move your finger that way. It's a little bit over." But we need to know it's forward, it's backwards, it's left, it's right. It's a whole learning curve. It's a specific way of communication that enables you to go forward.
Because I think having got my eyesight, we take it so for granted that you just say, oh, it's just that way, and you don't realize that you're actually gesturing with your hand to say it's
There's so
left
many
or right.
visual indicators. We
Yes.
have to really stop and listen carefully so we pick up the tone. People often mistakenly think that blind people can hear better. It's not that you can hear better, it's just that you have to focus on the audio rather than the visual, and that puts you in a different line, a different way of communication. But it also allows you to appreciate the audio, and there's so many sounds that you hear as a blind person that you pick up that a sighted person would just not even worry about, because they're able to just see things, and they're able to block out others.
So then for me, what your story kind of highlights is a key part then of communicating is not only the words we use, but it's the non-visual aspects. So it's the gestures, it's facial expressions, which is where the eyes move, the mouth moves, do you know what I mean?
Of course.
And head nods and all of that. So it's, even though you still do those things unconsciously, you don't have that information coming in.
I don't.
Hence, tone becomes so important. So the person's voice and their actual specific words, and so much of communication is the words we use.
Yeah.
So I bet you've also then learned a lot about questions, like needing to ask people the right questions to get the specific detail out of.
It just takes a bit of time to for a visual person to adapt to being around a blind person, to learn that there's ways of showing them how to do things, explaining things to them. You have to bear in mind that we don't understand this way, for example.
No, what's this way?
Which way is this way? You need to, as a blind person, afford them the opportunity to learn that. So you need to help them, you need to show them, this is what I understand, this is what I don't understand, this is how you can help me, this is how you can hinder my progress. Basically.
So that's from your side then is being willing to explain to people more what you need from them in order to exist. Because I mean, even just sitting up in your office, because we're in your office today, we did stumble over each other, and then I had to quickly learn to adapt to see where you are.
Just get out of my way.
Give you some space. But I think it's an interesting learning for even people who have their sight in terms of community. We just naturally just say this way, yet if we actually want someone to pick up what we're trying to teach them faster, the more specific our language is, instead of just assuming that person knows what we mean when we say this way, would be to use more specific language.
Absolutely. I recently went for a weekend away with a couple of newly acquainted blind friends. And one of our sighted friends took a ride out on his bike to have a braai with us and enjoy the afternoon, and he got directions from me, and on arriving there he said he was really concerned because he got directions from a blind guy who'd gotten the directions from another blind guy. but we certainly have a way of explaining things clearly and making sure that they're comprehensible at best,
Yeah, which is a key part then of it. What else then? I think another point in one of your things you spoke about being much more decisive in terms of communication when people are communicating with you.
It's very frustrating when we wait for someone to say something. There are a few things that a sighted person can do that can really torture a visually impaired person. Firstly, silence, because we don't know, are you frowning? Are you angry? Are you smiling? Are you
thinking?
waiting patiently? Are you thinking? What are you doing? Are you standing there going, oh? We don't have a way of knowing that, so you need to say it. You need to be clear. We're not deaf. We don't understand sign language. So you can't say, just go down here and that type of thing.
In a direction,
And basically, it's an adaptation that our loved ones and business colleagues and that learn very quickly. But we certainly, as blind people, have to help the non-aware to adapt. We have to ask questions over and over again. Sometimes we have to apologize and say, I'm really sorry, but this is how you need to explain this to me.
Yeah, so again, it's teaching and asking people for being specific, and I suppose the decisiveness for me was, I wondered if there was around decisions. So it's more explaining what's going on instead of processing internally. It's like, you just give me a moment, I'm thinking about, so that
Sure.
you know that,
Absolutely,
to give a moment. I think we've spoken about a lot. Anything you've learned also about relating to other people? Like,
I've learned so many different lessons through all of this. In one of my recent blogs, I highlighted all the things that I learned. Originally there were 5, and subsequently there's become a 6th one, which is perhaps the biggest one. But perhaps I should run through those to give you an idea. So the first thing is you have to learn how to trust. And you quickly, as a blind person, will align yourself with the right people, because the world has a way of sorting itself out, and people that are there to support you and want to be there will be there. You have to be prepared to trust them. When you walk with someone, when they're guiding you, if there's a car coming, they need to be able to tell you, hey, there's a car or not. You can't rely on your other senses. So trust is something that is essential. The next thing is patience. It's going to come to a point where you're so frustrated and you're not able to move forward because you're waiting for assistance. And certainly someone like myself who's used to running, all the time and working at full speed, it was very, very different. Having to rely on others. So you most certainly need to learn to be patient. Okay, the next one is?
so there was listening, and we spoke a little bit about it.
About listening, yeah. Sometimes people are not clear in what they say. Sometimes they mumble, and a lot of what you would get from what they say comes out in what you visually see. Again, their anger, if they were frowning or disappointed or confused. We don't have those keys, so we really need to stop and we need to listen very, very carefully. And we need to listen to the world around us as well, because we need to know when that car is coming past. We need to know when that thing is moving in our way and that. So where I've always been a talker and a bad listener, I've had to become a really good listener. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to keep moving forward.
So besides being obviously forced to listen because you've lost one of your senses, what else do you think has helped you to develop that listening? Is anything?
Again, you're forced to, so you have to. You have a choice of staying where you are or moving forward. And if you really want to move forward in the world, you need to adapt. So I think it almost comes naturally, the listening thing. I never really realized you have to stop talking over people, completing their sentences, all weaknesses that I've struggled with. You have to give them an opportunity to be clear, and if they're not, you need to tell them, I don't understand what you mean. Please be clearer, please explain this. I'm not comprehending what you're saying.
So part of listening is, as you say, just slowing down to let the other person actually talk.
Of course.
But it's also asking, so listening is not necessarily passive, it's an active, but you're asking questions for clarity, not then adding more of your what you think. You're asking questions to really get clear on the other person.
Absolutely, yeah. absolutely.
Yeah. So then move on. One of the other points you had was around focus.
Well, let's talk about focus. When I go into a shop to buy 5 things, I have a list mentally of 5 things, and I come out the shop with 5 things. When I go in with my partner, she sees all sorts of other goodies on special, and that we end up leaving with 30 things. She doesn't have the ability to switch off to all the other senses in a way that we're forced to, or the visual aids, let's say. So, and that applies in the workforce as well, because a blind person is a great person to employ, because they're not distracted. They're not easily distracted by other things going on. They sit down, they do their job, they're dedicated because they're happy to have a job. They're not looking at this guy pulling a face, that car driving past. They just get the work done. They focus on a task, because we also don't have the ability to look at a list, to easily look at a list. We have to specifically dedicate ourselves and complete what is within our grasp at any time, and get it out of our minds, get it done. So focus is something that you certainly, it's a lesson that I had to gain.
And so when you say it's a lesson that you gain, is it that the ability then to just do one thing from beginning to end, and not
Absolutely.
jump around
and will not break, not be distracted. For me, when I'm typing, when I'm writing, if I'm writing about a certain topic or whatever, the best thing I can do is switch off to everything else and just sit or stand. I like to stand and write. I have a standing desk in my inside, and write, and just write from the beginning to the end. Get it buried, get that door closed, get it completed, and then slowly but surely I can now look at my to-do list and see what other tasks I've got set for the day. Because once you break it, it's hard to get back into it. If that makes sense.
No, it doesn't. It's with sighted people, never mind.
Yeah.
People who don't have sight. So that's something you really then develop more of.
Absolutely.
Because also I suppose we spoke a bit about the technology. It takes a while to get into the right app, so you want to, while you're there, focus, get as much as you can.
You want to make sure you understand things properly, and you not only that you comprehend what people say, but you comprehend how things work. If you don't understand how a certain lock on a gate or door works, it's going to always be a challenge. You need to be focused on a specific thing and not worry about 10 other things at the same time.
So something a bit about mastering. So in order to master that lock, so that you know how to get yourself in and out of that gate, you actually got to spend the time and energy just focusing on it.
To give you an example, one of the first things that I did after losing my sight and getting healthy again was to build an extensive key rack inside one of the cupboard doors. I won't tell you burglars where exactly it is, but there are specific hooks for specific keys. I've got a system, so I know if I want to open the garage, if I want to open the gate, that's where the remote hangs, that's where the key for the office is, things like that. You have to find a way of becoming, as I said, I don't call myself OCD, I call myself CDO. That's the where it should be, alphabetical. I'm an extremist in obsessive compulsive disorder, let's say. Be organized, and it'll make things a lot simpler, a lot easier.
Yeah. Because they say we can't just see which key it is.
Sure.
So the fifth thing on the list was appreciate what you have.
Appreciate every second that people give to you. Appreciate having the ability to be alive and healthy and supported. And take time to show your appreciation for others. Tell them frequently how much of value they are to you, and it helps you put a lot of things at ease. It helps you to know that you can count on them. They need to know that they're an essential part of your life. They need to know that you rely on them. And the world, appreciate the sound. When I go to the beach, I don't just look at the sea. Obviously, I can't look at the sea. I smell the sea. I listen to the waves. Sometimes I touch the sand and the water, and I get such a thrill of feeling things in a way that I wouldn't before. I taste the saltiness in the air. All of these things that a sighted person would take for granted, I relish.
Sure. So yeah, you relish that, but also I think we're going back to, in terms of relating in that, the not only just that appreciation, almost like it's quite close to gratitude. Being really grateful that you have the people in your life around it. But in terms of building those relationships, I mean, as you're saying, like one other learning was around trust. You really have to trust the people that are there, that have stood by you, and that are willing to help you cross the road, or all those things.
And you quickly figure out who those people are.
Yes.
Because the people that, I don't know, sometimes I think that if I was the one on the other side of the street and a friend of mine had lost their sight, and I would just avoid them because I wouldn't know what to say. In fact, up to the point that I'd become a blind person, I'd never met another blind person that I remember. I didn't know how to communicate with them, how to relate, and I certainly, if a friend of mine had lost their sight, wouldn't have known what to say. How do you be compassionate? How do you justify the fact that, well, you've got your sight? It's tricky, but the world has a way of sorting itself out, and you quickly figure out who you can rely on, who you can learn to trust, and who you can't. I certainly have had to do that.
Yeah. So just to wrap up with the point on appreciating, then it's then to show that appreciation for those people that you can trust, that are still there, because it just helps build that relationship. Because I mean,
I agree with you 100%.
Because they have a little bit more to do. A bit more, they've got to think a bit more, learn a few more skills.
And they have a lot of challenges. They become disabled in a way as well, because they have to now, help you. They have to not only look after their own well-being and comfort. They have to make sure that you're okay. They make sure that you're able and safe and comfortable. Taking a train trip with a loved one, for example, who has to guide you. But they have as much responsibility to you as you have, to show the responsibility to show your appreciation to them for their time.
For helping you, yeah. And so maybe just because you made a really interesting point there about a lot of people, perhaps you've lost friends and that because they don't know how to interact with you.
Sure.
And I think it's quite similar. I mean, when it comes to other challenges that people experience, often they've lost someone, so they're busy grieving the loss of someone close to them. A lot of times other people don't know how, when it's a sensitive, if I can call it that.
What I can say is that when this happens and you don't know what to say, it doesn't really matter what you say. You should say something. Say anything. Say hello. How are you doing? Good to see you. Say anything.
I suppose they say, like, I don't really know what to say.
Say that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just don't stop talking, because then you don't exist anymore, because we can't see you. So you're robbing us of a further sense.
But for me, it's still reaching out to you, because
Absolutely.
I couldn't come and speak to you face to face, but we used, once you were upset up in that.
Sure, yeah.
We've been talking in that through Facebook, but so part of it, saying, like, if it's not only losing your sight, but any other kind of sensitive challenge, it's still to engage with that person, still to...
Communication doesn't mean sitting together. It means drop an email, say hello, comment on a Facebook tweet, anything. Just reach out, and just to know that person still has a connection to you. That makes a big difference to showing your character and putting you in the line of support for that newly disabled person.
I think it's great. Even if you don't know what to say something.
Say anything.
Reach out.
Say anything. Yeah.
So those we've gone through 5, and you said you've added a 6 now to...
This is one that I've learned most recently, and it's called perseverance. You're going to be frustrated as a person that is on a different road to the one you expected to be on, and you're going to have to learn things over again. You have to persevere. You have to just keep moving. You can't stand there. If you're on the road, standing there, you will get run over if you don't move. You have to keep stepping forward. You have to try hard, and you'll learn things. You'll learn about technology. You'll learn how to access apps on a tablet, how to operate the telephone, the TV remote, where things are in the fridge, how to cook, and how to, ensure that you can dress without putting your pants on back to front, which I did yesterday. My tracksuit pants were back to front. Everybody had a good laugh. Be focused in making sure that your shoes are right. Just keep persevering. Make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. You'll get it right. If you keep trying, you will get it right. You will move forward.
And it's through those mistakes that you learn.
Of course.
You mean, and so it sounds like perseverance and focus are also very intertwined.
Of course. I mean, I hope my mistakes are all over now. I hope that the days of me leaving the house with 2 different shoes on are in the past. But
that's how you learn.
Of course, yeah.
On a chart, and you find then and being able to focus. And
it's also about how you handle these things. When people tell me, "Oh, you've got 2 different shoes on," what's that all about? You can either say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I've made a fool of myself," or you can say, "I'm making a statement. Get with the program. Come on, I'm a trendsetter rather than a trend follower." Soon everybody will be wearing 2 different shoes.
Yeah, so keeping that sense of humor, and
you have to. You can choose how to be in this world. You can choose to accept. It took me a long time to accept, but I think that I'm okay now. Yeah, I think I'm going down a road that's interesting, and perhaps this is what I was always destined to, to have happen to me.
Yeah, we never know those things. That's all.
The most frustrating part for me was, of course, that, again, I was trapped in this little bubble, in this world where I couldn't communicate, where I couldn't talk, I couldn't reach out, I couldn't say to friends, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on?" and everything. I rely extensively on the internet as a way of communication. My friends are spread all over the world. I've lived and worked in the most remote places, so to be able to sit down with a keyboard and drop an email, send a message on Facebook or a tweet, or chat on Skype or FaceTime, it is it was almost as if I'd become so isolated and I'd been robbed of those lines. It doesn't have to be that way. I wish that when I'd lost my sight I had a better support system that could show me what was available to me, because there isn't. It doesn't exist. Certainly not in this country. And I hope that in the future I can offer someone who unfortunately has lost their sight something of a support and some sort of advice. Tell them, this is what is available. This is what you can expect. This is what you're going to have to accept, and this is what you're going to have to learn. And this is what can help you and make your life better.
And that there is a whole lot available with technology today. That doesn't mean you're limited. It just means that you access the world a slightly different way.
I was always a very anti-Apple product person, thinking that you needed to have a hipster haircut and drink a mocha chai latte or some weird type of drink, and to be a user of their products. I was adamantly against them. I thought it was just a brand and there was nothing good about them, but I've become the biggest fan of Apple. But they have a voiceover system that comes as a standard part of their software package, and it allows us to type, to rather than use a mouse to navigate our way around the computer using a keyboard or a touch screen. And again, it opens up the world. It's almost as if you become part of society again. I can only but say about Apple, I was very wrong for slating them for so many years, and I've become their biggest fan and ambassador.
Thanks, Apple.
Thank you, Apple. There are systems in place that work on Microsoft as well.
And on Android, I think.
And on Android, that work just as well. There are different costs involved and different, depends what you want to do, depends what you want to use it for. For me, discovering that Apple was so user-friendly and intuitive has made it's made my world open up again. It's made it that I can see again. because we as blind persons, we still see. We just draw a picture in our minds of what we think is out there. So
using the descriptive words that people can share, or the websites, the more descriptive the websites are, and your other senses.
Sure, it's so frustrating when someone posts a picture on Facebook and I scroll through the newsfeed and it tells me Telana Simpson has posted one new photo. And there's no description, it doesn't tell me what it is. So I say, oh, very nice, cool, a photo, whatever. Is it your dog? Is it your holiday? Is it you? Is it a car you bought? By just captioning that photo, it reads to me and tells me what it is, and it makes a world of difference in the access we have,
And I must say, since speaking to you, since you lost your sight, I've become much more aware of that. So I hope it's helping
the people
you,
that matter
that
have.
actually try and write sentences to explain what I'm trying to get across, because I think it will help. Yeah. But it's also very good, I think, for my website, is to remember then photos I upload with articles to put a caption.
Just put a little caption, the radio apps, for example, the apps that are easily accessible have a one button, listen. It's labeled listen. It doesn't just say listen on it, it's labeled. So you hear the audio description of it. It says listen. You double tap it and it starts streaming. If it doesn't say listen, it just says button. We don't know which button. There's sometimes hundreds of buttons on the page.
And what that button would do.
And without knowing where, without having assistance, we're not able to.
Oh, it's very interesting. So again, in terms of websites, the way to communicate with more people in this world would be to be much more specific. How can people get hold of you? So if they want to, find out more about how you can help them learn this accessibility, or just get in touch.
I'm on Twitter. Blind Scooter Guy is my handle, and on Facebook it's facebook.com/Blind Scooter Guy, where I have a link to my blog as well as a way to communicate with me and get in touch.
So then, as we wrap up, then, is there anything else that maybe I haven't covered yet, in terms of what we could learn from your story, if we could pass on to people in terms of relationships, how they get along with people, how they express themselves to each other, or anything else really that's...
Yeah, look, as far as relationships go, all I can say is, as a blind person, I've really learned to appreciate the friends. I've learned to appreciate the support, and I hope that when a blind person a newly blind person loses their sight, that they find me, because I wish that I could have found someone like me. I've found people that really have helped me in their own ways. I have a friend who works for the police service. He runs a switchboard at a station in the Winelands, and he's phenomenal. He's a musician, he's a father, a new father. He's well achieved, and he's been such an inspiration. I have another friend in Australia who is a girl who writes. She's just a new mother. She's got a baby, and she has also helped me to learn about progression and find ways to achieve again. I want to be an overachiever. I don't want to accept. I want to put myself out there. But certainly, through the support of family, friends, and technology, you can live as a disabled person or visually impaired person and still count.
Absolutely, and I think not only count, but actually make a difference. Do you impact? You are... I look forward to following your story and watching how you impact the world.
Well, let's see. One bite of that elephant at a time, one tweet at a time, and I'm really enjoying writing. I've wanted to do that all my life, and I'm getting to do it. It's just a slow, painful process that I have to persevere through.
But you are, and that was one of the learnings: perseverance, focus, patience, trust, and listening, and all appreciating what you have actually got in there and what's available for you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This was Let's Talk Communication with me, Telana. To find out more about my guest, Christopher Venter, and about the show, please go to talkcommunication.innercoaching.co.za. Thank you.